Plato discusses the creation of just city-state in this book, The Republic. He takes city-state, just city-state, as hierarchical arrangement of three classes. Philosopher kings and auxiliary. These are warriors. And then others. Okay. Justice is not about equality, equity. Justice is about what is human nature and what are the various parts and how these parts are hierarchically arranged. In the same way, what are the classes and how these classes are hierarchically arranged. In that sense, this is somewhat closer to Indian caste system. Caste system is also various castes and hierarchical arrangement, and each caste has to do its duty and understand its place in the total. Okay, and respect the division of labor, work allocation, and harmoniously interlinked like this. Okay. So in fact, one scholar by name Dumont thought of caste system like this, where each caste performs its duty as a part of total. In a human body, head is doing its duty, and hands are doing their duty, legs are doing their duty. But does that mean that head is superior to leg and a hand is superior to leg? It is not like that. All are organically linked. Man will suffer without any organ. Okay. So this is the conception that Plato has of these classes. Society divided into classes as per their nature and hierarchically arranged. That is justice. That is just society. But the problem with this arrangement is that when these classes are identified, classes are identified on the basis of some selection of individuals. Okay, like this, individuals are selected. Problem with this approach is when individuals are selected into a class, what prevents an individual from changing? Okay, so one is good at the time of selection at reasoning, but does it mean that he will continue to excel in reasoning all through his life? So what prevents man from change? And more importantly, are people so different that some are reasoning oriented, some spirited oriented, and some appetite oriented. So are people so different? This is one. And don't they change? So this is one. Don't they change? And this is another two. And next thing is so what happens to their children? Plato assumes children of the reasoning oriented people will also be reasoning oriented. So the class are like this, and the children of this class will enter only this class. The children of this class another one. No, it's like this. So this is very rigid. But of course, Plato says if a person from another class uh, doesn't show if he doesn't show the attributes of that class, because there are going to be some exceptions, he can be shifted. So if a reasoning child is found in this appetite class, then he can be shifted. But they will be regarded as exceptions. So I think all these assumptions are not correct. Once you are good at reasoning, or if you are good at reasoning for 10 years, it does not mean you will be good at reasoning, or you will be oriented to reasoning all through your life. Nor your children will be good at reasoning, and then their children. Okay. But Plato knows that nature is only one of the things. So Plato believes in, very importantly, the role of education. So select by nature and then educate. So purpose of this education is to promote justice and goodness. Okay. And of course, topmost importance should be given to the guardian class, and even within the guardian, philosopher kings. So the education of philosopher kings is very important. Their selection is very important. Okay. Education should make them good citizens. Particularly philosopher kings are those who should live for others, not for themselves. Okay. And for philosophers to live only for others and not for themselves, philosopher kings are deprived of two privileges: property and family. This is called communism. Communism of property, communism of family. So this is the general scheme of things that Plato visualized for his just state, which meant proper selection, education, and then deprivation of privileges to philosopher kings. Deprivation, also called communism. Okay. Now, let us see what he has to say. First, philosopher kings has to reset the society. What philosopher rulers do is, the immediate difference between them and others is that they would refuse to touch a city or an individual or to write laws unless they either take over a clean board or clean it themselves. So philosopher kings don't simply replace the existing rulers and try to make better laws. But what they do is they reset. Okay. And then all in the city over 10 years of age will be sent into the country. Then they will take the children in hand away from their parents and bring them up in their own ways. So philosopher kings are sending everybody except children below 10 and educating them starts. This is the quickest and easiest way to establish the city and constitution we have discussed, for it to be happy and to confer the greatest benefits upon the people among whom it may be established. So philosopher kings are resetting the society. And what kind of education they will give? Early education is very important. The most important stage of any enterprise is the beginning, especially when something young and sensitive is involved. You see, that is when most of the formation takes place, and it absorbs every impression that anyone wants to stamp from it. So early education is important. And in this early education, literature and arts play a very important role. For example, at that time, Homer's Iliad and Odyssey were like Bible in more recent societies. Plato objected to Homer's morals. Plato believed in the power of art in education, their effect on morality. So not aesthetics of poetry. So characters are to be created in arts are very important to develop virtue in the children at a very early stage. When virtue is developed at a very early stage, then this is what happens. He would find offensive the things that he ought to find offensive. Fine things would be appreciated and enjoyed by him. And then reason would be greeted like an old friend when it did arrive, because anyone with this upbringing would be more closely affiliated with rationality than anyone else. So what he is saying is, you art, stories, you create a particular kind of socialization. Okay. This is a part of socialization. Socialization is unthinkingly emulating the values. But later, reason will come. Then socialization, if there is right socialization, it will be compatible with reason. Then he will evolve into a good person. It is not that the socialization is one thing and reason is another. Okay. Next, a good education, if maintained, A good education, if maintained, engenders people of good character. And then people of good character, if they are in their turn, receive the benefits of an education of this kind, become even better than their predecessors in every respect. But especially, as is the case with other creatures too, in that they produce better children. So, you have educated parents, so they lead to better children. And in turn, better children. So in this way, society is improving itself. But usually it doesn't happen like this. But Plato wants this kind of education. Okay. Next, philosopher kings must be carefully selected, tested at different stages. Early education was to identify them. Identified. At age 20, they get to do mathematics and dialectics, arithmetics, geometry, solid geometry, astronomy, and harmonics. At age 50, after 15 years of administrative experience, by then, he will have a glimpse of forms of the good. Forms of the good refers to, no matter what the context is, recognizing goodness. What is good? So a philosopher king will understand the general pattern of goodness. He will have a glimpse of forms of good. Okay. And next, one problem with our society is that rulers have access to many resources. And because of these resources, many want to be rulers. Okay. Rulers have wealth, power, prestige. Because of that, many want to get power. But Plato wants to avoid this. Rulers are identified on the basis of the reasoning component. And so they will enjoy reasoning. They will enjoy rule, but not for the sake of power, but as duty. As duty. And how do we ensure that rulers are like that only? Deprive them of property. And more importantly, even family. So that only those people who are interested in philosophical path will be the rulers, not everybody. Okay. It means rulers are suited to the job. People from the third class may not want to be rulers because they enjoy wealth, they enjoy family. Why should they want to be rulers? Only with that philosophical component would enjoy being rulers. This is how Plato is bringing justice as happiness. Rulers will be interested in doing this, will be happy in doing this, not others. Okay. So what happens to the property? Philosopher rulers, not only philosopher rulers, but both the classes, which are called guardians, they will have common messes and live together as children, as soldiers in a camp with minimum facilities. They own only their weapons and there is no privacy. Others can inspect them anytime. Not to own gold, silver, and they live on rations. Fixed amount of essential goods will be given to them. Okay. But these two are only for guardian classes. Third class will have property. So land will be privately owned by the third class. So Plato's communism is not the kind of ownership of means of production. Plato's communism is more like guardians made to live in a monastery. Okay. But why would they be like that? And also, there will be communism of family too. They will be deprived of family. So how will they be deprived of family? Marriages will be temporary, and temporary marriages for the sake of reproduction. That's all. And they are arranged in a way that the best breed the best. No love affairs. In fact, state arranges mating in lottery. But Plato says actually this lottery is rigged. Rigged in a way that the best breed the best. So it means there is no mate selection, there is no love, there is community of parents or husbands and wives and children. And children won't know their parents. Okay. No sex outside marriage during the reproductive years. Why? Because sex would lead to reproduction. Plato doesn't have any moral considerations about sex. But so after the reproductive years, sex is freely allowed. Okay. So no private family. And this is the reason. This will prevent them from tearing the city apart by using the expression mine to refer to not to the same thing but to various things. My house of one is different from my house of the other. So my gives different meanings, but Plato says it shouldn't. It means removing mine. All regard the same things as within their circle of interest, tend in the same direction, and feel pleasure and pain as much as possible under the same circumstances. Okay. So I don't think anybody would prefer to be in a condition like this, except for maybe very, very few. But that was what Plato thought. One positive thing about this arrangement is that women are not discriminated. Women to have same opportunities as men to be educated as well as to rule. But that does not mean men and women are equal in every way. Women may be inferior in certain ways, but not as philosopher kings. So this is one good thing about Plato's Republic. Women can be philosopher kings. It means there are philosopher queens. But why should some people to live in a condition like that, deprived of property and family? It is because of this. The guardians' victory is more splendid and their upkeep by the general populace is more thoroughgoing. The fruit of their victory is the preservation of the whole community and their prize and the maintenance of themselves and their children with food and all of the life essentials. Okay. During their lifetime, they are honored by their community, and when they die, they are buried in high style. So Plato accepts that philosopher kings will have more honor, though in material terms they are deprived. Okay. But why should they accept? Plato says, once they understand the forms are supposed to represent the reality. Okay. Which is beyond the sensible world. They don't want to engage in human business. There is nowhere else their minds would ever rather be than in the upper region. So philosopher kings won't be interested in many mundane things. And they rule not as something splendid, but as a duty. So, philosopher king is by nature different. Okay. So because of which they don't mind communism and they are going to be properly educated. Okay. So in Plato's Republic, communism, education, and right selection play a very important role. Okay. And I would say the main problem is that extending justice of the soul to justice in the city. Justice in the soul should be led by wisdom. This is true. But if you extend this idea in terms of three classes, and that too rigid, what happens is that it won't be wisdom that rules the city, but only wise man's child and grandchild. It won't be clear why in the first place they were chosen to be wise. So I don't think this selection process is right. And I don't think there is any kind of education that will make people forever happy and good and just. There is no such. Nor this communism itself, even for philosopher kings, a just and happy way to live. So Plato may have got the idea of what is harmony within a soul, but when he extended it to the city, I think he got his basics wrong.